Hey, I'm here in studio with Plymouth County Sheriff Joe McDonald. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Christine.
Well, I wanted to talk with you because, of course, there's the issue going around about migrants, illegal migrants, ICE, who's picking up who, what the roles are, and what the guidelines are. And it's a lot of information, and I hear a lot of chatter. Some people have part of the story, some people have all the story. I'd like to kind of go through this stepwise with you, if you can do this in layman's terms, layperson's terms, and let me know exactly what the role is and what the guidelines are, because I just want to make sure that I have this correct. And again, I know this is an emotionally charged topic for many people, so I'm just going to say to our listeners now, if you have a complaint, a question, or problem, if you call me up screaming or send me a nasty email, I will not respond to you. So I just want to let people know that right away. I'm just trying to get information out here. I am not taking a side. So again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the first thing that comes up, they talk about an immigration detainer. Isn't that another word for request?
Yeah, that's essentially correct, Christine. A lot of people are under the mistaken impression that this is somehow a warrant that would have the force of a criminal warrant, which, if there is a criminal warrant out for somebody, then certainly we're going to be authorized to make an arrest and detain somebody on a criminal warrant. However, these detainers are simply, as you say, a request. They're civil in nature, and all they say is that ICE has an interest in somebody and would like to know where that person is.
So when you say that when they make a request to your office, what they're talking about, holding someone 36 hours beyond their, I guess, booking, sentence, or court time, why are they asking for that 36-hour extension?
Well, generally speaking, the 36-hour extension that you saw is part of the legislation that has recently been filed. What ICE generally looks for is 48 hours. And that's historically what the verbiage that's included in the detainer states. And what they want is some time for them to ascertain whether or not this is somebody they actually want to take into custody or someone that they don't mind seeing released. Where this can run into a problem. Now, if someone's serving a sentence, we have a very good idea as to when it is they're walking out the door. And we can give ICE advance notice for much longer than 36 hours. However, when someone is being held on bail, they could make that bail at any time. And the whole process of bailing someone from the jail can be accomplished in under an hour. So ICE would only have an hour under that circumstance because we can't, once they make bail, they're free to walk out, and we cannot hold them.
Because that's what I was going to ask you. Why do they need the 36 hours? Is there some kind of communication between them and your office?
Yes.
Do they call you on a regular basis? How does that work?
Well, yes, they do, and we have always had a great our relationship with the U.S. Marshals and ICE goes back to the 1980s, back when Sheriff Flynn was there. And we've had these intergovernmental service agreements to hold inmates and detainees on behalf of the Marshals and ICE for all that time. And that's, basically something that's gone on right along. So we've always had, I can't vouch for any other offices what they're doing, but for us there has always been that line of communication. And recently we have had, we've got ICE officers that are frequently inside working in the facility as well.
Are sheriff's deputies going out? I know this is another thing people ask. Are sheriff's deputies going out and getting people? No, and I will say categorically, sheriff's deputies from Plymouth County nor any other county in Massachusetts are doing that because, according to the Lund decision, that's beyond our authority. And we didn't even do it before then because, quite frankly, we don't have the manpower to send folks out to do such things, nor the authority. I can tell you that the local police aren't doing that, and I do know that there's a lot of misinformation. You pointed out at the beginning of our visit here that so many stories bouncing around. A lot of people have part of the story. Some people just have the wrong story, and the wrong story is that we're out there arresting people, that the local police or the state police are out doing motor vehicle stops. It's false. Even ICE is not out there doing motor vehicle stops. They are gathering intelligence. They are figuring out where these people are and doing raids based upon those people's locations. They're not doing patrol. Okay, so when they're asking for the request to pick somebody up, are these people that are only held with criminal charges? Generally speaking, yes. They wouldn't be with us serving a sentence if they didn't, or held on bail if they hadn't committed a crime. So by definition, all of those people that they're looking to us to notify them about are going to be with us for some
criminal purpose.
Is there any talk about notifying or picking up people or having your office connected with picking up people that are not criminally charged? Is that on the horizon?
No, that is not on the horizon. Years ago, we had something, a program that we participated in along with Barnstable County Sheriff's Office and Bristol County Sheriff's Office called 287G. Mm-hmm. And during that period of time, we would have to have, I think there were quarterly public meetings to discuss. What that allowed us to do was to actually place those detainers and detain those people. Mm-hmm. We don't have that anymore. The people who are qualified and trained to do that have retired, and we just don't have the manpower. However, ICE seems to be willing now to backfill a lot of those positions. So I'm not even sure we need that anymore because ICE seems to be handling a lot of this on their own now.
Now, what about this new proposed legislation? This would, I guess, override the Lund law or whatever. Isn't that what they call it?
Yes,
or
the Lund decision.
Okay.
It's a Supreme Judicial Court decision here in Massachusetts, 2017. And what the Lund decision stated, and I agree with the Lund decision, is that local law enforcement authorities, the sheriffs and sheriff's deputies included, we do not have the authority to enforce federal law. It's just not there. We don't do it not because we are prohibited, it's mm-hmm. just not allowed. So what the Lund decision did was said, look, if the legislature wanted local law enforcement to engage in such activities, they could make a statute to that effect. So the Lund decision said, you can't do it because there's no authority, but if the legislature acted, that might be constitutional. So what this legislation that you're seeing, and I know Representative Sweezy has been in here to talk about it, and he's a co-sponsor, as am I and Sheriff Evangelitis out of Worcester. If that law were to pass, I'm sure it would be challenged constitutionally, mm-hmm. But that would be exactly what the SJC had suggested. Give the authority to local law enforcement to do those things, and then you would be able to do those things.
In layman's terms, if you were, say, writing the Cliff Notes version of this so people could understand it, we always say if you can't tell your story in like 3 or 4 sentences, no one's paying attention.
Yeah.
Could you tell me in 3 or 4 sentences what your role is in dealing with illegal immigrants or migrants or whatever, undocumented citizens, whatever people want to call these people, and your role with ICE?
Okay. Our role with ICE here in Plymouth County, it is a little bit different. We are the only county in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that is currently housing and holding ICE detainees. Mm-hmm. So we hold them, and those people can come out of our regular criminal population. And sometimes ICE, because we're the only one from any of the other counties in the Commonwealth, they will be brought to us by ICE. And those are individuals we may or may not have had contact with in the past. So as far as our role with ICE, we are simply a contractor that provides safe, secure, and humane custody for those individuals who are awaiting removal from the United States and repatriation to their home countries.
What about financially? What kind of money does this involve?
Well, we have recently renegotiated. I'm glad that you asked that question because a lot of people do know now the Commonwealth is reimbursed, and specifically we are paid on a per diem to hold those individuals. And at last count, it appears that we're on a trajectory right now to make about $25 million in we call it retained revenue. Years and years ago, that money was allowed to be retained by the sheriff's office and used for, to fund our operation. However, since 2010, when we became state agencies, our jurisdiction didn't change, but all that money now gets swept into the general fund. So we have, here in Plymouth County, we've given tens of millions of dollars, maybe, going back to 2010. We'll have to, that's a subject for another day. We'll get those calculations, but millions and millions of dollars is going to the general fund for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, not to the sheriff's office.
Okay, and what about critics that say, why don't you just stop doing it? Because they don't like it.
Well, the critics may not like it, but, people ask me, why do you do this? Because I think it's my job. My job is to enhance public safety here in Plymouth County, and that means everybody's public safety, whether you are a natural-born citizen, a naturalized citizen, a tourist, someone who's here on a student visa, or an otherwise law-abiding illegal alien. There's a responsibility I have to enhance that person's safety while they're here. And these individuals, by and large, the vast majority, are out there committing crimes. And it's unfortunate that population, the immigrant population, specifically the illegal immigrant population, is being told that they can't contact local authorities because they'll get deported, which couldn't be further from the truth. So the people that are most victimized by the illegal alien criminals are the other undocumented illegal aliens, because they've been told that they cannot avail themselves of local law enforcement, which is not true. And I think that is probably the biggest injustice of this whole.
Don't you think, though, they're worried that they might be next?
Oh, I can see where they would be.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. They're not. You know, I can't state categorically that they're not, but it's very unlikely. As long as I've been the sheriff, and I'm sure other sheriffs before me would say the same thing, ICE has always had, they used to call it PEP, Priority Enforcement Program. The people that they prioritized getting a hold of, holding in custody, and deporting and repatriating to their home countries were the ones who were here committing serious crimes. It wasn't someone who's simply here, overstayed a student visa and is working, somewhere legitimately. Those are not the individuals who are targeted. I think it's unfortunate that those folks now, and I think this is a disservice that certainly not anybody here, but the larger, what do you call them now, the legacy media or whatever they call themselves, I think those stories that are being peddled out there, that everybody is subject to being chased down, pulled over in a car by every law enforcement agency you can think of, couldn't be further from the truth. It's only ICE and their federal colleagues and the FBI, DEA, all those other federal agencies are working on this now, but they are prioritizing criminal illegal aliens. And what I mean by that is illegal aliens who are here committing serious and substantial crimes against everybody, but in particular against the immigrant population themselves. And I think that's a great injustice.
Do you think anything in the current system should be changed?
Well, I think yes. And the short answer is yes. There's a lot, and that's probably the subject of another day for us to come in.
And please, I hope you do come back. Just like the first couple of things, what would you change about the whole system?
Well, I think the most important thing for us to change right now, at least in the short run, is to give a good look to this legislation that's going to allow us, not that we're going out into the community and grabbing people. That's not what this legislation contemplates. Simply us being able to hold someone for a reasonable period of time. Now, the legislation says 36 hours. Maybe 36 hours is reasonable, maybe less. In my experience as the sheriff, that's more time than we need. ICE can identify very much ahead of time, and they seem to be dedicating the resources now that if somebody needs to get picked up, they're picked up within a day. That's not a serious issue. So I think the first thing we can do is give serious consideration to this legislation that's going to amend the bail statute to allow us to hold on these detainers for a reasonable time. And then, we'll work things out through the court.
What about conditions at the House of Correction? Sometimes you hear there have been some lawsuits filed, some complaints, some criticisms, some charges. What do you say about the conditions at the
conditions at the Plymouth County House of Correction are exemplary. They are safe. They are humane. Anyone that's ever come in, we are accredited by the American Correctional Association. We are the single most audited correctional facility in the Commonwealth. We're audited by the DOC. We're audited by ICE. We're audited by the Marshals. We even have private contractors that come in at the behest of the feds to audit those things. Most recently, a lot of these self-proclaimed activists are out there either starting these stories or repeating stories that they might have heard from somewhere. The most recent one was that the heat was off, or we weren't providing heat down, which couldn't be further from the truth. And I'm glad that the Department of Public Health, the State Department of Public Health, came in unannounced and did checks of those units and found that the temperatures there were between 68 and 73 degrees. And right, my house is not that warm. So let's be real. So what you hear are the allegation, and what you don't hear in the news reports are the results of the investigation, because it doesn't fit the narrative. And I think that narrative, that false and phony narrative that these are all law-abiding people, is bad, and we need to work against that.
Anything else you want to add? I'm going to definitely have you back to talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah, nothing I can think of right now, Christine, but there will be a lot of questions I know that you'll have, and I'm hoping, as you say, that folks will contact you in a nice way, and ask their questions, because we really probably should deal with those questions. And I think there's plenty of misinformation out there. And I just want to say to you that I very much appreciate the opportunity to come here and straighten that record out a little bit, because there's more questions than I can handle at any given time in this setting. But I think, like we said, we'll keep at this and we'll answer people's questions. And I think people need to understand that local law enforcement is not doing a lot of the things that are being alleged out there. We're not rounding people up. We are doing our jobs, and our jobs are to enhance public safety for everybody here in Plymouth County.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. What we're going to do, if people do have questions about the interview today, or we're definitely going to have you back, send the questions in writing to watdnews@gmail.com. We'll gather those. We'll have you back again to answer more questions.
Yeah, and hopefully, I can report back to you how we're making out with this legislative change that we're pursuing right now, and hopefully, things will get better.
That's great. We appreciate you joining us. Again, that's Plymouth County Sheriff Joe McDonald. Sheriff Joe McDonald. Sheriff